The highway stretched empty under a moonless sky. No other cars. No witnesses. Just the hum of expensive German engineering and the soft jazz playing through premium speakers. Then the lights erupted behind her, red and blue strobing against the darkness like a predator's eyes. Amara Hayes checked her speedometer, 53 in a 55 zone. Her hands tightened on the leather steering wheel as she guided the black Mercedes to the shoulder. Gravel crunched under tires that cost more than some people's monthly rent. She rolled down the window before they approached, turned off the music, placed both hands at 10 and 2 where they could see them. Every movement deliberate, every breath controlled. 2 officers emerged from the patrol car, their flashlights cutting through the night like accusations. The first one, tall with a crew cut and a smirk already forming, approached the driver's side. His partner, stockier with dead eyes, circled to the passenger window. Their body language spoke before their mouths did. This wasn't about traffic safety. Evening, the tall one said, drawing out the word like a threat. His nameplate read Rains. License and registration. Amara's voice came out steady, professional. May I ask why I was pulled over, officer? Rains's flashlight swept across the interior, noting the briefcase, the designer handbag, the conference materials scattered across the passenger seat. Nice car. His tone made it sound like an accusation. Must have cost you what, 80 grand? She didn't answer. Reaching slowly into her glove compartment, she retrieved her registration. From her purse, her license. Officer Vega, the partner, leaned against the passenger window, peering inside like he was appraising stolen goods. How exactly does someone like you afford a car like this? The words hung in the air, heavy with everything they didn't say. Amara handed her documents through the window. Her credentials were clipped to the registration. Federal Circuit Judge, 3rd District. Rains barely glanced at them before his laugh cut through the night. Federal Judge? He held up her ID like it was a joke. Sure you are, sweetheart. He dropped her credentials. Onto the wet pavement, and something in Amara's chest, the part that still believed in the system she'd sworn to uphold, cracked just a little. 12 hours earlier, Judge Amara Hayes had presided over a wrongful termination case with the precision of a surgeon. Her courtroom, mahogany and marble, flags flanking the bench, was a temple of order. Lawyers straightened their ties when she entered. Court reporters sat poised, ready to capture every word. She'd ruled in favor of the plaintiff, a black woman fired for wearing natural hair. The defendant's attorney had sputtered about company policy. Amara had shut him down with case law recited from memory, her voice calm but absolute. Discrimination doesn't disappear behind euphemisms, she'd said. Denied. Afterward, 3 young attorneys, all women of color, had approached her chambers. They were nervous, grateful, inspired. One was clerking for a district judge. Another had just passed the bar. The third was still in law school. You're the reason I'm here, the law student had whispered. Amara had smiled, exhausted but genuine. Then make sure you open doors for the people behind you. She'd stayed late reviewing briefs for tomorrow's docket. A Section 1983 case, police brutality. The plaintiff's photos showed bruises that told stories words couldn't. She'd flagged inconsistencies in the officers' reports, made notes for depositions. Her phone buzzed constantly. Emails from colleagues about the Civil Rights Conference in 2 days. Text from her ex-husband about their daughter Zoe's birthday party tomorrow. A voicemail from her mother asking if she'd eaten. By 8 p.m. the courthouse had emptied. Just Amara and the security guard, who always said goodnight in Urdu, a language she'd learned enough of to return the greeting. She'd packed her briefcase carefully, case files, her father's worn copy of Letter from Birmingham Jail, a framed photo of Zoe missing her 2 front teeth. Everything she'd need for the weekend. The drive home was supposed to be simple. 32 minutes on Highway 84, straight shot to her neighborhood, where mortgage payments reflected a federal judge's salary and neatly trimmed lawns spoke of stability. She'd been thinking about Zoe's birthday cake. chocolate with raspberry filling, her daughter's favorite. Mentally reviewing the guest list, wondering if 12 was too old for a bounce house. The Mercedes had been a gift to herself after her appointment to the bench. Not because she needed luxury, but because her father had always driven broken-down cars held together by prayer and duct tape. One day, he'd told her, "You'll drive something that doesn't leak oil." She'd cried when she signed the purchase agreement. Now, on this empty highway with October wind cutting through her open window, the car felt like evidence of a crime she hadn't committed. Rains's flashlight swept across her face, momentarily blinding her. "Step out of the vehicle," it wasn't a request. Amara's feet touched cold asphalt. The temperature had dropped since sunset, low 50s, her breath visible in the flashlight beam. Hands on the hood. She complied, her palms pressing against metal still warm from the engine. Behind her, Vega was already circling the car, shining his light through the windows like he was hunting for something specific. "So, Judge Hayes," Rains said, air-quoting with his fingers, "that's a pretty impressive fake ID. Where'd you get it made?" "It's not fake." Her voice remained level despite the rage building in her chest. "How you can verify it through—" "I'm not verifying anything until I search this vehicle." He stepped closer, invading her space. "You got anything illegal in there? Drugs, weapons, stolen property?" "You have no probable cause to search my car." His smile was ugly. "I've got probable cause if I say I've got probable cause." Vega tried the passenger door. Locked. He knocked on the window. "Open it. Do you have a warrant?" Rains's hand moved to his holster, not drawing, just resting there. A silent threat. "We can do this easy or we can do it hard," he said. "Your choice, sweetheart." The word landed like a slap every time he used it. Amara unlocked the doors remotely. What choice did she have? Resist and become a statistic? Comply and swallow her dignity? She chose survival. They tore through her car with practiced efficiency. Vega dumped her briefcase onto the passenger seat, legal documents scattering, her father's book landing spine up in the footwell. Rains went through her glove compartment, her center console under the seats. A minivan slowed as it passed, the driver's face pressed against the window. Then accelerated away. No one stopped to help. "What's this?" Vega held up a pharmacy bottle. "Prescription medication without a label?" "That label is right there," Amara pointed. Her blood pressure medication, prescribed by her cardiologist, her name printed clearly on the orange plastic. He squinted at it, disappointed. Tossed it back onto the seat. 20 minutes became 30. 30 became 40. A second car slowed, this time a young black man with his phone out recording. Rains noticed immediately. "Keep moving," he barked. The man hesitated, then drove on. But Amara had seen the red recording light. Someone was watching. That had to count for something. Rains finally stepped back, frustrated they'd found nothing. "Taillight's out," he announced. "No, it's not." "Are you arguing with me?" "I'm stating a fact." Amara's composure cracked slightly. "My taillights are functioning perfectly." Vega walked to the back of the car, kicked the bumper lightly. "Looks out to me." They were creating a violation that didn't exist, documenting a reason that would justify this stop in their report. Rains pulled out his ticket book with theatrical slowness. "Here's what's gonna happen. I'm writing you a warning for that taillight. You're gonna take it, say thank you, officer, and drive away. Understand?" Amara's jaw clenched. "I want your badge numbers." "You want my what?" "Your badge numbers. Both of you. I'm filing a formal complaint." The temperature of the interaction dropped 20 degrees. Rains leaned close enough that she could smell coffee on his breath. "You really want to lecture me about the law?" His voice went soft, dangerous. "You want to tell me how to do my job?" Behind them another car slowed. This time it pulled over completely. A white sedan with a middle-aged woman at the wheel. Phone pressed to her ear. Calling someone. "Recording something," Rains noticed. His expression shifted, calculation replacing aggression. "Get in your car," he said abruptly. "You're free to go, no ticket, no warning, just dismissal." Amara gathered her scattered documents with shaking hands, her father's book, her briefcase. Everything felt contaminated now, touched by hands that had no right. As she pulled back onto the highway, she saw Rains in her rearview mirror, already back in his patrol car. Laughing, Amara made it 3 miles before she had to pull over again. She guided the Mercedes into a rest stop parking lot, empty except for a long-haul truck with its engine idling. Killed the ignition, sat in sudden absolute silence. Her hands trembled against the steering wheel. Not from fear. Fear had been burning in her chest for the past hour. This was rage, pure and incandescent, begging for release. She didn't cry. Tears felt too small for what she was feeling. Instead, she pressed her forehead against the leather steering wheel and breathed. Counted to 10, then 20. Then gave up counting. The professional part of her mind, the judge who'd presided over hundreds of cases, who'd heard testimony about moments exactly like this one, was already cataloguing evidence. Timestamps, physical descriptions, exact phrases. "Sure you are, sweetheart." The illegal search. The fabricated taillight violation, but the human part of her, the daughter of James Hayes, civil rights attorney who died defending people, the system had chewed up and spit out. That part was drowning. She'd done everything right. Hands visible, voice calm, compliant to the point of self-erasure, and still they'd treated her like a criminal. Her phone buzzed. Text from her mother. "Almost home? Zoe keeps asking when you'll be back." Amara typed a response. "Soon, traffic." Liar. She couldn't tell her mother what had happened. Not yet. Couldn't explain to her 72-year-old mother who'd marched with Dr. King, who'd buried a husband killed by the stress of fighting systems that never bent, that nothing had changed, that her daughter, despite the law degree, despite the federal appointment, despite the robe and the gavel and the chambers, was still just another black woman on a dark road. Her father's voice surfaced from memory, from the thousands of car rides where he'd used driving time as teaching time. "Dignity is your armor. Amara, they can take your freedom, your safety, even your life. But dignity, that's yours until you surrender it." She hadn't surrendered it tonight, but God, it had cost her. Amara reached for her briefcase, pulled out the Section 1983 file she'd been reviewing. The police brutality case. The plaintiff's testimony described officers who'd escalated routine stops into violent confrontations, who'd manufactured probable cause, who'd documented false narratives in official reports. The defense had argued these were isolated incidents, bad apples. Not systemic, she'd been skeptical, had flagged the patterns, the repeated behaviors, the culture of impunity. Now she knew viscerally what that plaintiff had felt. The difference was simple and enormous. Amara had power, and she was going to use every bit of it. Her father's office had smelled like old books and righteous anger. Amara had been 9 years old, sitting in the corner with her homework, while James Hayes prepared for trial. She'd watched him rehearse opening statements to an empty room, his voice building like a preacher's, cataloguing injustices with the precision of an accountant. "They think we won't fight back," he'd said. Not to her, but to the absent jury. "They think poverty equals powerlessness. But I'm here to tell you—" "Dad?" Young Amara had interrupted. "Why do the police hurt people?" He'd stopped mid-sentence, turned to face her. His expression had shifted from courtroom warrior to gentle father. "Come here, baby." She'd climbed into his lap, small enough then to fit perfectly. "Police aren't supposed to hurt people," he'd explained. "They're supposed to protect. But sometimes, people with power forget that power is responsibility. They start thinking badges mean they can do whatever they want. Can't someone stop them? That's what judges do. That's what the law is supposed to do." He tapped her forehead gently. "One day you're going to be the one making the rules. Not breaking them, making them. And you'll remember every person who needed someone to fight for them." She'd believed him completely. The path from that moment to federal appointment had been brutal. 3 jobs through law school: waitressing, tutoring, legal research assistant. Student loans that would take 2 decades to repay. Summers clerking for judges who mentored her, molded her, showed her how justice could be more than theory. Her father had died 2 weeks before her law school graduation. Heart attack at 54, stress-induced, brought on by decades of carrying other people's trauma. She'd walked across that stage with his empty seat in the audience, feeling like an accusation, but she'd kept going. Clerked for a Supreme Court justice who taught her that precedent was a weapon properly wielded. Built a reputation as a prosecutor who wouldn't take easy wins, who dismissed charges when evidence was weak, who held police accountable when they crossed lines. Defense attorneys hated her. Police unions challenged her appointments. Victims loved her. 3 years ago, at 38, she'd been appointed to the federal bench, youngest black woman in the Third Circuit. Her father would have been insufferable with pride. Now, sitting in this rest-stop parking lot with her hands still shaking, she understood something she'd intellectualized but never felt. The law was only as just as the people enforcing it, and tonight, those people had been Officers Raines and Vega. She pulled up her phone, opened a search browser, typed Highway 84 precinct complaints. The results loaded slowly. Public records, settlement agreements, a local news investigation from 2 years ago that mentioned excessive force allegations before being buried under other stories. Amara's prosecutor instincts activated. Patterns meant systems. Systems meant documentation. She dug deeper. Officer K. Raines, 12-year veteran. 17 civilian complaints, all dismissed as unfounded. 3 excessive force allegations. 2 lawsuits settled out of court for undisclosed amounts. Officer M. Vega, 8 years on the force. 9 complaints. 1 pending investigation for use of racial slurs during arrest. Captain Daniel Morris had signed off on every dismissal. The precinct had a history. Not isolated incidents. Not bad apples rot. Her phone buzzed again. This time a calendar reminder. Zoe's birthday party, 11 a.m. tomorrow. She needed to get home, help her mother with decorations. Pretend everything was normal, but Amara Hayes had never been good at pretending. She started the car, pulled back onto the highway, and began planning a response that would make her father proud. The house was dark when she arrived at 11:43 p.m. Amara parked in the garage, sat for a moment before going inside. Through the door connecting garage to kitchen, she could hear the muffled sound of late-night television. Her mother still awake, probably crocheting and watching old westerns. She gathered her briefcase, her scattered documents, her father's book with the bent cover, evidence of violation. Inside, her mother looked up from the couch. Evelyn Hayes had the kind of face that couldn't hide emotion. Joy, grief, worry, all transparent as glass. Baby. You okay? Long day, Amara managed to smile. Zoe sleeping? Out like a light around 9. Kept asking for you. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. What happened? Nothing. Just traffic. Her mother didn't believe her, but knew better than to push. There's lasagna in the fridge. Thanks. Mama, I'll eat in the morning. Amara climbed the stairs to her home office, a converted bedroom with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a desk that had been her father's. His nameplate still sat there. James Robert Hayes, attorney at law. She booted up her laptop, pulled up her personal cloud storage, opened the folder labeled Dashboard Camera Footage. 6 months ago, after reading about a case where dashcam evidence had saved an innocent man from wrongful prosecution, she'd had one installed. Dual cameras, one facing forward, one facing the driver's seat. Audio recording enabled. The system backed up footage automatically to secure cloud storage. She navigated to tonight's date, selected the timestamp. The video loaded. There she was, hands on the steering wheel, calm and compliant. The audio crystal clear. Raines's voice, sure you are, sweetheart. The illegal search, all of it documented. Vega tossing her medication. their dismissive laughter, the fabricated taillight violation, everything. Amara played it back 3 times, her professional mind cataloguing each violation. Fourth Amendment search and seizure, racial profiling, abuse of authority, creating false documentation. She downloaded the file to her desktop, backed it up to 3 separate drives. Then she opened a new browser window and pulled up the federal PACER system, public access to court electronic records. Her credentials gave her access to case files across districts. She searched Morris Daniel Plus complaints, 7 cases in the past 4 years, all civil rights violations, all settled before trial with confidentiality agreements that sealed the records, standard practice for covering up systemic abuse. She searched Highway 84 Precinct Plus, Section 1983. 12 cases, 9 settlements, 3 dismissed on qualified immunity grounds. The pattern was textbook. Target minority drivers. Escalate routine stops. Search without cause. Document false violations. Bury complaints through administrative dismissals. And when lawsuits came, settle quickly. Seal the records, prevent patterns from emerging in public. But Amara had access to sealed records. Federal judges could review them for related proceedings. She started pulling files, reading depositions, connecting dots. A 19-year-old college student stopped for suspicious driving, car searched illegally, arrested on fabricated drug charges, later dismissed. Settlement, $75,000. A 40-year-old teacher pulled over for failure to signal, subjected to roadside sobriety test, despite no indicators of impairment. Dashcam mysteriously malfunctioned. Settlement, $50,000. A 32-year-old nurse stopped for matching description of suspect, held for 2 hours, missed her shift, lost her job. Settlement, $40,000, all black, all professional, all targeted on the same stretch of Highway 84. Amara's heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat. This wasn't about one bad stop. This was about a precinct that had turned racial profiling into standard operating procedure, protected by a captain who dismissed every complaint and an administrative system that valued reputation over accountability. She opened a new document, began drafting a formal complaint to the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, then stopped. A complaint would trigger an investigation. But investigations took months, sometimes years. Officers would be placed on administrative leave with pay. Evidence would mysteriously disappear. Witnesses would recant. She needed something more immediate, more powerful, something that would bring federal scrutiny so bright, so intense, that no amount of administrative protection could shield them. Amara pulled up her federal court docket. She had authority to initiate judicial review of civil rights violations within her circuit, could request FBI investigation, could subpoena records, compel testimony, bypass administrative stonewalling. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. This wasn't just about justice anymore. This was personal. And the rules were clear. Judges who had personal involvement in cases were supposed to recuse themselves. But she wasn't a defendant or a plaintiff. She was a witness to a pattern, and she had the power to expose it. She began typing the formal request. In the matter of civil rights violations, Highway 84 Precinct, Federal Judicial Review pursuant to 42 U.S.C., paragraph 1983. At 2:17 a.m., she clicked Submit. The system confirmed receipt. The request would hit the U.S. Attorney's desk by morning. By Monday, federal agents would be knocking on Captain Morris's door, and officers Raines and Vega would learn exactly who they'd pulled over tonight. Amara closed her laptop, finally exhausted. Tomorrow was her daughter's birthday, cake and presents and laughter. But Monday was reckoning day. Morning arrived with the subtlety of a freight train. Captain Daniel Morris was halfway through his first coffee when his secretary knocked. 3 rapid taps that meant trouble. "Sir, U.S. Attorney's Office on line 2. They say it's urgent." Morris set down his mug, the ceramic making a hollow sound against cheap veneer. "Urgent calls from federal prosecutors never meant good news. Captain Morris, this is Assistant U.S. Attorney Chen. I'm calling regarding a federal judicial review initiated Friday night by Judge Amara Hayes, Third Circuit Court." The name hit him like cold water. Hayes, federal judge. Friday night. His mind raced backward. Friday, Highway 84. He grabbed his incident log, scanned Friday's reports. There, vehicle stop, 11:07 p.m. Officers Rains and Vega, black Mercedes. Warning issued for malfunctioning tail light. Routine stop. Nothing unusual flagged, except the driver had been a federal judge. "I need Officers Rains and Vega in my office," he told his secretary, hand covering the receiver. "Right now," to Chen. "What exactly is being reviewed?" "Pattern of civil rights violations within your precinct. Racial profiling. Illegal searches. False documentation. Judge Hayes has provided evidence and requested full FBI investigation. We'll need to schedule depositions for all officers involved in stops along Highway 84 for the past 18 months. Morris's stomach dropped. 18 months meant dozens of stops. Hundreds of reports, all subject to federal scrutiny. There must be some misunderstanding. There's dash cam footage, Captain. Audio and video. Crystal clear. We'll be sending a formal subpoena for all related records by end of business today." The line went dead. Rains and Vega appeared in his doorway, still in uniform from night shift. "They looked exhausted. Routine, sir." Morris's voice came out strangled. "Tell me about your stop Friday night." "Black Mercedes, female driver." Rains shrugged. "Routine traffic stop. Taillight violation. We issued a warning. The driver." "What was her name?" "30. Rains pulled out his citation book, flipped pages. "Hayes, Amara Hayes. Did you verify her identification?" "She had some ID claiming to be a federal judge. Obviously fake." Morris's fist hit the desk hard enough to rattle the coffee mug. "It wasn't fake, you idiot. She is a federal judge. And now she's initiated a federal investigation into this entire precinct." The color drained from Rains's face. Vega went rigid. "We didn't know," Rains said weakly. "It doesn't matter what you knew." Morris stood, pacing. "Did you search her vehicle?" Silence. "Did you search her vehicle without probable cause?" She consented. "Did she consent or did you coerce consent?" Morris's voice climbed. "Because if there's footage showing you violated her Fourth Amendment rights, we're all finished." Vega found his voice. "There's no footage. Her car didn't have cameras. She had dash cams. Front and interior. Everything recorded. Audio too." The room went silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Morris sat back down, suddenly exhausted. 23 years on the force. 15 as captain. Pension just 4 years away. All of it potentially gone because 2 officers couldn't recognize power when they saw it. "I'm going to try to contain this," he said quietly. "I'll reach out to Judge Hayes directly. Request a meeting. Maybe we can resolve this before it escalates further." Rains's expression shifted to desperate hope. "You think she'll drop it?" Morris didn't answer. He'd seen enough federal investigations to know they didn't get dropped. But maybe if he could convince her the precinct would reform, that this was isolated, that accountability would be served, maybe she'd settle for something less than complete destruction. He picked up the phone, dialed the Third Circuit Court Clerk's office. "This is Captain Daniel Morris, Highway 84 Precinct. I need to request a meeting with Judge Hayes. Personal matter urgent." The clerk put him on hold. Muzak played, something jazzy and inappropriate, when she returned. "Judge Hayes will meet with you Wednesday at 2 p.m. Federal Courthouse, her chambers. She requests you bring legal counsel and that the meeting be recorded for official record." Official record. Not a negotiation. A deposition. "Thank you," Morris said. "I'll be there." He hung up, looked at Rains and Vega still standing in his doorway. "Get out." Don't talk to anyone about this. Don't file any reports. Don't even think wrong until I figure out how to fix your mess. They left quickly. Morris sat alone in his office, staring at the commendations on his wall. Officer of the Year 2019, Community Service Award. Photos with the mayor, the police commissioner, all of it built on a foundation that was cracking beneath him. Wednesday, 2 days to prepare a defense for the indefensible. He reached for his phone again, dialed his union attorney. This was going to get expensive. Tuesday night, Amara was reviewing her notes for the Wednesday meeting when her email pinged. Sender, anonymous. Subject, drop it. Her hand hesitated over the mouse. Spam? She had federal security on her accounts. She clicked. The email loaded. No text, just an image attachment, a photograph, Zoe's school, taken from across the street. Her daughter visible through the chain-link fence, laughing with friends during recess. A red circle drawn around her in the photo. Digital and deliberate. Below the image, 6 words. Drop the investigation or she pays. Amara's blood turned to ice. Her hands shook as she forwarded the email to the FBI field office she'd been coordinating with. Grabbed her phone, dialed her ex-husband Marcus. I need you to pick up Zoe from school. Right now, it's 8 p.m. She's home. What's wrong? Someone just threatened her. Marcus's voice sharpened. What? Federal investigation. Dirty cops. They know where she goes to school. Amara's voice cracked. Marcus, I need you to take her. Tonight. Go to your parents' place upstate. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Amara, slow down. I don't have time to explain. Please, trust me. Silence on the line. Then, I'm on my way to get her. Amara hung up, dialed FBI agent Torres, the lead on her case. Judge Hayes. I just received a threat. Email with photo of my daughter. I forwarded it to your office. We're on it. Stay where you are. I'm sending a unit to your house right now. Amara paced her office, adrenaline flooding her system. This was different from the traffic stop. That had been about her. This was about Zoe. Her daughter, who was 12 years old and loved horses and wanted to be a veterinarian. Her daughter, who had nothing to do with corrupt police or federal investigations or justice. Her daughter, who was now a target because Amara had refused to stay silent. The doorbell rang. Amara jumped, hand instinctively reaching for her phone. Through the window she saw 2 FBI agents, credentials already out. She let them in. They swept the house, checked windows, confirmed security system was armed. We're tracing the email now, Agent Torres said. Used a VPN and burner account, but we'll find the source. My ex-husband is taking my daughter upstate. I need protection on them too, already arranged. Local field office will have agents on them within the hour. Amara sank onto her couch, the weight of the decision pressing down. She could continue the investigation, bring federal charges, dismantle a corrupt system, but at what cost? If something happened to Zoe, if she pushed forward and her daughter paid the price, could she live with that? Her phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. Got her. She's scared but safe. What do I tell her? Amara typed. Tell her mom loves her. Tell her everything will be okay. Lies, both of them. Or maybe prayers. Agent Torres sat across from her, expression serious. Judge Hayes, we can increase security. Put your daughter in protective custody. But I need to be honest. These threats are credible. Someone in that precinct is desperate enough to escalate. Are you suggesting I drop the investigation? I'm suggesting you understand the stakes. Amara looked at her father's photograph on the mantel. James Hayes, standing outside a courthouse in 1987, briefcase in hand, expression fierce. He'd received threats, too. Death threats. Threats against family. He'd pushed forward anyway, and he died at 54, heart destroyed by stress and fear and righteous anger. She had Zoe to think about. Zoe, who needed a mother more than the world needed another martyr, but she also had the woman at the rest stop. The 19-year-old college student, the teacher who lost her job, every person who'd been violated by officers who believed badges meant immunity. They needed a voice too. Agent Torres's phone buzzed. He checked it, expression darkening. We traced the email. IP address leads back to a computer at the Highway 84 precinct. Administrative access. Someone inside sent this. Amara's fear crystallized into something harder. Can you identify who? Working on it. But this changes things. This is witness intimidation. Federal offense. We can bring charges immediately. Do it, Torres nodded. The meeting tomorrow. Are you still going through with it? Amara thought of Zoe, safe with Marcus but frightened. Thought of her father, who'd never backed down. Thought of every person who'd been silenced by threats and power imbalances. Yes, she said, but I want FBI presence. I want every word recorded. And I want whoever sent that email arrested before I walk into that building. Understood. After Torres left with his partner to coordinate security, Amara sat alone in her living room. The house felt too big, too empty without Zoe's laughter, her music, her constant questions about everything. She pulled out her phone, typed a text to her daughter. I love you more than anything. Be brave, this will be over soon. Zoe responded immediately. Love you too, Mom. Are you safe? Amara stared at the question, cursor blinking. Finally typed, I will be, not a lie. Not quite a promise. Something in between. She looked at the photograph of her father again, remembered his funeral, the line of clients and colleagues who'd shared stories about cases he'd won, lives he'd changed. Was it worth it, Dad? She whispered to the empty room. All the stress, all the fear, was it worth it? The photograph didn't answer, but she knew what he would say. Justice isn't about comfort. It's about cost, and someone has to be willing to pay. Amara opened her laptop, reviewed her notes for tomorrow's meeting one more time. Wednesday would come whether she was ready or not, and she would face it the only way she knew how, with truth, with courage, and with the certainty that silence was a luxury she couldn't afford. Not anymore. Wednesday morning arrived grey and cold. Amara hadn't slept. She'd spent the night sitting in Zoe's empty room, surrounded by horse posters and science fair ribbons, wondering if she'd made the right choice. Her phone showed 17 missed calls. Colleagues from the courthouse concerned. Her mother, frantic after learning about the threat. Marcus updating her every hour that Zoe was safe, and one voicemail from Judge Patricia Wilson, senior circuit judge who'd mentored Amara through her appointment. I heard what happened. Call me, please. Amara couldn't, not yet. She didn't want to hear the reasonable advice, the cautious warnings, the well-meaning suggestions that maybe she was pushing too hard, too fast. She'd heard it already from Marcus last night on their third call. This is insane. Amara, our daughter is in hiding because you won't let this go. Is it really worth it? She'd wanted to scream at him, to explain that this wasn't about being stubborn, about ego or revenge, but he wouldn't understand. He'd never been pulled over for driving while black in a nice car, never been called sweetheart by someone with a gun and a badge, never had his credentials dismissed as fake. He lived in a different reality, and no amount of explanation could bridge that gap. So she'd said, I'm keeping her safe. That's all that matters. And he'd replied, by putting her in danger in the first place. The words had cut deeper than the threat email. Now at 6 a.m., Amara stood in her kitchen making coffee she wouldn't drink. The FBI agents stationed outside her house were visible through the window, constant reminder that her home was no longer a sanctuary. Her mother arrived at 6:30, let herself in with her key. Baby, you look terrible. Thanks, Mama. Evelyn set down her purse, immediately started making breakfast that Amara wouldn't eat. Scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice. The motions of comfort. Marcus called me, her mother said quietly. Told me what happened. Did he tell you I'm endangering my daughter? He told me he's scared. So am I. Evelyn turned from the stove, expression serious. But I also know my granddaughter. You think she wants you to stop? She told Marcus last night she's proud of you. Amara's throat tightened. She's 12. She doesn't understand. She understands her mother is a judge, that you fight for people, that you don't back down just because it's hard. Evelyn set a plate in front of her. Your father used to say the same thing Marcus said. Is it worth it? At every time he got a threat, every time someone warned him to stop. What did you tell him? I told him I married a man who couldn't look the other way, that it was part of loving him. Her mother's eyes were wet. It killed him, Amara, all that stress, all those battles. But he died knowing he'd fought for something that mattered. I don't want to die, Mama. I want to watch Zoe grow up. Then be careful. Be smart, but don't be silent. Evelyn squeezed her hand. Silence is what they're counting on. At noon, Agent Torres called. We identified who sent the threat. Officer Miguel Vega's brother, David. Former cop fired 3 years ago for excessive force. He used Vega's login credentials to access the precinct computer. Where is he now? In federal custody. Arrested an hour ago, charged with witness intimidation, making terroristic threats conspiracy. He's not getting bail. Some of the tension in Amara's chest eased. And Vega? Being questioned about his involvement. If he knew about the threat, he's an accomplice. The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. Amara dressed carefully, navy suit, her father's cufflinks, the small cross necklace her mother had given her for her appointment ceremony, armor, all of it. Agent Torres drove her to the courthouse, FBI escort front and back. Security normally reserved for mob trials. As they pulled into the underground garage, Amara saw news vans already gathering. Someone had leaked that a federal judge had initiated an investigation into police corruption. The story was going public, whether she wanted it to or not. Inside her chambers, she sat behind her desk, the place where she held power, made decisions, enforced law, but today she felt small, vulnerable, human. A knock at the door. Her clerk, Jennifer, poked her head in. Captain Morris is here with his attorney. Ready? Amara took a breath. Thought of Zoe, safe upstate. Thought of her father, who'd faced down worse. Thought of the woman at the rest stop who'd called 911. The young man who'd recorded on his phone, all the people watching, waiting to see if justice was real or just a word. I'm ready, she said, and meant it. The conference room was deliberately neutral. Long table, recording equipment, American flag in the corner. Captain Morris sat across from Amara with his attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Kelso, who specialized in defending police misconduct cases. Morris looked diminished somehow, his uniform pressed but his expression haggard. Agent Torres sat to Amara's left. Assistant U.S. Attorney Chen to her right. Recording devices active. This meeting is being recorded per federal protocol, Chen began. Captain Morris, you requested this meeting. The floor is yours. Morris cleared his throat. Judge Hayes, I want to start by apologizing for Friday night. The stop was inappropriate. My officers made mistakes. Mistakes, Amara repeated, voice flat. Categorize those mistakes for me. He shifted uncomfortably. They didn't recognize your credentials. They shouldn't have searched your vehicle without clear probable cause. And the citation was issued in error. You're describing civil rights violations, Captain. Not mistakes. Attorney Kelso leaned forward. Judge Hayes, my client is prepared to offer a formal apology, mandatory retraining for the officers involved, and internal review of stop procedures. Internal review, Amara said. Like the internal reviews that dismissed 17 complaints against Officer Rains, or the reviews that cleared Officer Vega, despite documented use of racial slurs. Kelso's expression hardened. Those complaints were investigated thoroughly and found to be without merit. Amara pulled out a folder, slid it across the table. Inside were copies of sealed settlement agreements, depositions, complaint records. These are federal records from cases involving your precinct over the past 4 years. 12 Section 1983 lawsuits, 9 settled with confidentiality agreements. Combined settlements totaling $640,000 in taxpayer money, all involving the same stretch of highway, the same pattern of behavior, the same officers. Morris paled as he flipped through the documents. "Where did you get sealed records?" Kelso demanded. "Federal judges have access to sealed materials for related proceedings," Chen interjected smoothly. "Judge Hayes is within her authority," Amara continued, voice steady. "The pattern is clear. Target minority drivers. Escalate routine stops. Search without probable cause. Document false violations. When lawsuits follow, settle quickly to prevent public scrutiny." "That's not," Morris started. "It's documented in administrative emails between your office and the city attorney. You actively discouraged officers from contesting lawsuits because you knew discovery would expose systemic misconduct." Silence filled the room. Agent Torres pulled out his own folder. "We've also reviewed dash cam footage from squad cars for the past year. 43 stops on Highway 84 involving minority drivers. 31 resulted in searches. Only 7 of those searches produced contraband. That's a 16% success rate, well below statistical norms for probable cause stops." "And here's the critical detail," Chen added. "White drivers stopped on the same highway. 12% search rate, 4% when you control for legitimate violations. The numbers painted an undeniable picture. Racial profiling as standard operating procedure." Morris's attorney conferred with him in whispers. Finally, Kelso spoke. "What outcome are you looking for, Judge Hayes?" Amara met Morris's eyes. "I want federal oversight of your precinct. Mandatory body cameras with footage automatically uploaded to independent servers. External review board for all complaints. Termination of officers with sustained violations. And criminal charges where evidence warrants. You're asking me to dismantle my department. I'm asking you to reform it." "There's a difference." Morris's jaw clenched. "These are good cops doing difficult work in difficult circumstances. A few bad stops don't negate years of service." "A few bad stops." Amara's composure cracked slightly. "I was a federal judge, cooperating completely, and your officers treated me like a criminal. If that's how you treat someone with institutional power, imagine how you treat people without it." The room went quiet again. Chen pulled out a final document. "The U.S. Attorney's Office is prepared to file federal charges against Officers Raines and Vega for civil rights violations. We're also opening a formal investigation into systemic misconduct within the Highway 84 precinct. Captain Morris, you have 2 choices. Cooperate fully with federal oversight and reforms, or face obstruction charges alongside your officers." "This is extortion," Kelso said. "This is accountability," Amara corrected. "Something your precinct has avoided for far too long." Morris looked at the documents spread before him, the recorded evidence, the statistical analysis. His career, his legacy, all of it balanced on this moment. "If I agree to federal oversight," he said slowly, "what happens to Raines and Vega?" "They face criminal charges," Chen said. "That's non-negotiable." "But your cooperation will be noted in their sentencing recommendations." Morris closed his eyes. When he opened them, something had shifted. Defeat, maybe, or resignation. "I'll cooperate." Amara exhaled, tension releasing slightly. "Your agreement will be formalized in writing. You'll testify truthfully in all proceedings. You'll implement reforms immediately. And if you obstruct this investigation in any way, I'll personally ensure you face the maximum penalties available under federal law." "Understood." The meeting concluded 20 minutes later with signed agreements, recorded statements, procedural protocols. As Morris and his attorney left, Torres turned to Amara. "You okay?" She nodded. "Getting there." Chen gathered his materials. "This is just the beginning. The real work starts now. Depositions, grand jury testimony, reform implementation. It'll take months. I know, but you want it. Federal oversight, criminal charges, systemic reform. That's a victory by any measure." Amara thought of Zoe still in hiding. Her father, who'd died fighting similar battles. The woman at the rest stop who'd witnessed her humiliation. "Victory feels more complicated than I expected," she admitted. Torres smiled slightly. Justice usually does. The federal hearing convened 6 weeks later. The courtroom, not Amara's but Judge Patricia Wilson's, was packed. Media in the back rows. Community advocates. The 19-year-old college student, whose case had been settled. The teacher who'd lost her job. Faces representing every buried complaint, every silenced voice. Amara sat in the gallery, no longer the judge but a witness. Zoe beside her, finally home but visibly nervous. Marcus on Zoe's other side, protective. Judge Wilson presided with the gravitas of 30 years on the bench. This preliminary hearing will determine if sufficient evidence exists to proceed with federal criminal charges against Officers Kevin Raines and Miguel Vega for deprivation of rights under color of law. Assistant U.S. Attorney Chen stood. Your Honor, the United States is prepared to present video evidence, testimony, and pattern documentation establishing willful civil rights violations. Proceed. The lights dimmed. A screen lowered, and Amara's dashcam footage began to play. There she was, hands visible on the steering wheel. Raines approaching, flashlight cutting through darkness. His voice clear and mocking. Nice car. How exactly does someone like you afford a car like this? The courtroom went silent. The footage continued. Her credentials presented, then dismissed. Sure you are, sweetheart. The illegal search, Vega dumping her belongings, 20 minutes expanding to 40. Her calm requests for badge numbers met with threats. When the video ended, Judge Wilson's expression was stone. That's what the officers describe as a routine traffic stop. Yes, Your Honor, Chen confirmed. He called Amara to the stand. She'd testified hundreds of times as an attorney, presided over thousands of witnesses as a judge. But sitting in the witness box felt different, vulnerable, exposed. Chen's questions were methodical. Judge Hayes, please describe your credentials and experience. I'm a federal circuit judge for the 3rd District, appointed 3 years ago. Prior to that, I served as a prosecutor for 8 years. On the night of October 11th, why were you on Highway 84, driving home from work? I was reviewing cases for the following week's docket. I was not speeding, not violating any traffic laws. Describe the stop. Amara did, her voice steady despite the memories flooding back. The flashlights. The mockery. The violation of having her car searched while strangers watched. Did you consent to the search? No. I complied under duress because I feared what would happen if I refused. Chen pulled up dash cam footage from the squad car, obtained through subpoena. It showed Raines and Vega laughing after she drove away. Vega's voice captured on audio. Did you see her face? She actually thought we'd believe that judge story. Raines. People like her always think they're special. Need to be reminded of their place. The courtroom erupted. Judge Wilson's gavel cracked like thunder. Order. Chen continued. Your Honor, we have similar footage from 17 other stops. Same officers, same highway, same pattern. He played excerpts. A young black man, hands trembling, car searched for 30 minutes. Nothing found. An elderly black woman, forced to stand in the rain, humiliated in front of her grandchildren, each clip more damning than the last. Then Chen called Officer Yolanda Martinez to the stand, the whistleblower who'd been documenting abuses for months. She was young, maybe 26, visibly nervous in her pressed uniform. Officer Martinez, you've been with Highway 84 precinct for 2 years. Describe the culture. Martinez took a breath. There were quotas. Not official, but understood. Supervisors wanted numbers. Arrests, citations, seizures. Officers who didn't meet quotas got bad shifts, bad assignments. How were those quotas met? By targeting certain neighborhoods, certain demographics. We were told to look for suspicious vehicles on Highway 84 after 10 p.m. That always meant expensive cars driven by minorities. Did you participate in these stops? At first, yes. I was new, I followed orders. But I saw how it escalated. How officers would manufacture probable cause, document violations that didn't exist. Why didn't you report this? Martinez's voice cracked. I did, 3 times. Captain Morris dismissed my complaints, told me I was too soft for police work. When I persisted, I was reassigned to desk duty, ostracized by other officers. What changed? I saw Judge Hayes's stop. I reviewed the footage, and I realized if they could do that to a federal judge, they could do it to anyone. She looked at Amara. Someone had to speak up. Defense attorney Kelso cross-examined aggressively, but Martinez held firm. Her testimony was corroborated by emails, documented complaints, internal memos. The evidence was overwhelming. Judge Wilson called a brief recess. When court reconvened, her expression was severe. I've reviewed the evidence presented, video footage, statistical analysis, testimony from multiple witnesses. The pattern is undeniable. Officers Raines and Vega, you are hereby ordered to stand trial on federal charges of deprivation of rights under color of law. Bail is set at $100,000 each. Raines looked stunned. Vega's attorney immediately stood to argue, but Wilson cut him off. Furthermore, I'm recommending the Department of Justice expand this investigation to include supervisory liability. Captain Morris, you'll be subpoenaed for grand jury testimony. Morris, sitting in the gallery, went pale. The gavel fell. Court is adjourned. As people filed out, Amara felt Zoe's hand slip into hers. Mom, did you win? Amara looked at her daughter. 12 years old, but growing up faster than she should have to. We're getting there, baby. Outside the courthouse, news cameras swarmed. Chen gave a brief statement about justice and accountability. Amara declined to comment, but community advocates spoke. The college student, the teacher, families who'd been victimized, their voices finally heard. As Amara walked to her car, Officer Martinez approached. Judge Hayes, I just wanted to say thank you for not staying quiet. Amara studied the young officer. Thank you for having the courage to testify. That took more bravery than you know. Martinez nodded, then disappeared into the crowd. Driving home, Zoe in the passenger seat, Marcus following in his own car, Amara felt something shift inside her. Not victory, not yet, but possibility. The system was broken, but today it had bent slightly toward justice, and sometimes that was enough to keep fighting. 3 months later, the verdicts came down. Officer Kevin Raines, guilty on 3 counts of civil rights violations, sentenced to 18 months in federal prison, loss of law enforcement certification. Officer Miguel Vega, guilty on 4 counts including conspiracy, 24 months, same certification loss. Captain Daniel Morris accepted a plea agreement, testified against his officers, agreed to immediate retirement, faced no jail time but permanent disqualification from law enforcement. The Highway 84 precinct underwent complete restructuring. New captain, external review board, mandatory body cameras with automatic uploads. Federal oversight would continue for 5 years. 17 victims received formal apologies and settlement agreements funded by accountability measures, not taxpayer money. And Judge Amara Hayes returned to her bench. Today, she was presiding over a wrongful arrest case. A young black man accused of matching a suspect description, held for 6 hours, cleared when actual suspect was apprehended elsewhere. The plaintiff's attorney presented evidence methodically. The defense tried to claim qualified immunity. Amara shut it down with case law and precedent, her voice carrying the weight of experience. Qualified immunity does not protect willful misconduct. Denied. The plaintiff's face showed relief, vindication. After court adjourned, Amara returned to her chambers. Zoe's latest report card was pinned to her bulletin board, straight A's honor roll, a photo from their weekend at the Science Museum. Life had returned to something resembling normal. But Amara had changed. She was more careful now. Checking mirrors, varying routes home, maintaining security measures that would have seemed paranoid before. But she was also more certain of her purpose, of the responsibility that came with power, of why her father had fought until his heart gave out. A knock at the door. Jennifer poked her head in. "Judge Hayes? There's someone here to see you. Says it's personal." Amara looked up. "Who?" Officer Martinez stepped into view, now in civilian clothes. "I resigned from the force last week," she said without preamble. "I'm applying to law school. I was hoping you might write me a recommendation letter." Amara smiled, genuine and warm. "I'd be honored." "Sit down." They talked for an hour. About justice, about systems, about the difference one person could make when they refused to look away. When Martinez left, Amara pulled out her father's worn copy of Letter from Birmingham Jail, opened to a passage he'd underlined years ago. "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." She'd read it hundreds of times, but today the words felt different. Personal. Her phone buzzed. Text from Zoe. "Mom, can we get pizza tonight? And can I tell you about my science project?" Amara typed back, "Pizza sounds perfect. Can't wait to hear about it. Simple, normal, beautiful." She gathered her briefcase, lighter now, without the weight of fear, and headed home. The Mercedes was gone, sold months ago. She drove a sensible sedan with excellent safety ratings, and yes, dash cameras. Some lessons couldn't be unlearned. As she pulled onto Highway 84, the route she'd avoided for weeks after that night, Amara felt something settle in her chest. Not closure. Justice rarely came with neat endings, but peace. The kind earned through struggle. She passed the spot where Rains had pulled her over. No longer just a stretch of highway, but a reminder of what she'd survived, of what she'd changed, of the voices she'd helped amplify. The road ahead was clear, twilight painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. And Judge Amara Hayes drove forward, heading home to her daughter, carrying the weight of her father's legacy with quiet pride. The fight wasn't over. It never really was, but tonight she'd earned her rest. 6 months after the verdicts, Amara stood before an auditorium packed with law students. The invitation had come from her alma mater, keynote address for their civil rights symposium. She'd hesitated at first, unsure if her story qualified as inspiration or warning, but looking at the diverse faces before her, young people who'd chosen justice as a career, she understood why she'd said yes. "They saw my skin before my credentials," she began, her voice carrying to the back rows. "My car before my character. They assumed powerlessness, because that's what the system taught them to expect." She told them about that night. The mockery, the violation, the moment her credentials were dismissed as fake. "I had every advantage. Education, institutional power, resources. And still I was just another black woman on a dark road." She paused. "So imagine, truly imagine, what happens to people without those advantages." The students leaned forward, silent and attentive. "My father used to say dignity is armor." But I learned something else that night. Amara's eyes swept the auditorium. Dignity is also a weapon. And when you wield it with truth, with evidence, with the courage to refuse silence, no badge, no threat, no corrupt system can stand against you. She told them about the investigation, the fear, the threats against her daughter. "I almost stopped," she admitted. "When they threatened my child, every instinct told me to walk away, to choose safety over justice. And I won't lie to you, there were nights I wondered if I was being brave or just reckless." Her voice softened. "My daughter asked me once if it was worth it. If fighting was worth the danger, the fear, the disruption to our lives." Amara smiled slightly. "I told her the truth. I didn't know. Not then, but I knew what silence cost. And that price was too high." She clicked to the next slide. Statistics on police reform implementation, complaint review improvements, lives changed by the federal oversight. 17 people received justice because one person had the power to demand it. But here's what haunts me. How many people before me didn't have that power? How many voices were silenced because they couldn't fight back? The auditorium was utterly still. You're sitting here because you want to practice law. Some of you will become prosecutors, defenders, judges, advocates. All of you will face moments where speaking up costs something. She paused. And I'm here to tell you, pay that cost. Because the alternative, silence in the face of injustice, costs infinitely more. Amara looked at the faces before her. Brown, black, white, Asian, young and hungry for purpose. Power isn't given. It's recognized. Sometimes it's inherited through position, like my judgeship. But more often it's claimed through action. Through refusing to accept that this is just how things are. Her voice grew stronger. Every system that ever changed, slavery, segregation, discrimination, changed because someone with less power than the system demanded it anyway. She told them about Officer Martinez, who'd risked her career to testify. About the woman at the rest stop who'd called 911. About the young man who'd recorded on his phone. Those people had no institutional power, but they had moral power. And in the end, that proved stronger than badges and cover-ups and administrative protection. The presentation concluded with a final image, her father's photograph. Young and fierce, briefcase in hand outside a courthouse, sir. My father died fighting battles like this. His heart couldn't sustain the stress, the fear, the constant warfare against systems designed to grind you down. Her voice caught slightly, but he died knowing he'd fought. And that mattered. Not because he won every case, he didn't, but because he refused to let injustice pass unchallenged. Amara stepped back from the podium, her final words deliberate and clear. You'll face your own Highway 84 moments, times when the system reveals its ugliness, when power protects itself at the expense of truth. And in those moments you'll have a choice. She met their eyes. Choose courage. Choose voice. Choose the difficult path that bends toward justice, even when that path costs you something. Because here's what I learned that night, sitting in my car with my hands shaking and my dignity in pieces. They can dismiss your credentials. They can mock your authority. They can threaten everything you love. But they cannot silence truth if you refuse to let them. The auditorium erupted in applause. Students stood, some with tears on their faces, others with expressions of fierce determination. Amara smiled, thinking of Zoe at home working on her science project. Of Officer Martinez starting law school next semester. Of the 17 people whose complaints were finally heard. Of her father, who would have been impossible to live with, so proud he'd never stop talking about this moment. She stepped off the stage. As students surrounded her with questions, with gratitude, with their own stories of injustice witnessed or experienced, and Judge Amara Hayes, daughter of a civil rights attorney, mother of a brave 12-year-old, survivor of a night that had tried to break her, stood among future lawyers and told them the truth. Justice isn't a destination. It's a practice, and every single day you have to choose it again.